Several hundred people swim up from the bottom of the ocean. A woman swims up to the girl's body and breathes air into her mouth, carrying her to the surface. Meanwhile, Sheriff Jude Ellis is informed of the body found on the ocean shore. The sheriff and his deputy arrive at the shore and see several bodies. Jude tries to help the little girl and opens her eyes, but the shocked deputy points to the ocean and the sheriff sees hundreds of human bodies there. After a while, a rescue operation unfolds on the shore. There are more than 400 drowned, but there are survivors too, though no one can figure out where they came from. No one is wearing life jackets and no planes have gone down either. Jude finds the girl he rescued, named Leah, and she says that her mother is in the water, and they were running away from a war that is about to start. One of the rescued confirms her words. They came here from the future. All of the rescued say the same thing. They were fleeing the war because the extermination of people is taking place in their time. Those who sent them here promised them a long peace. They were all gathered on the platform and lowered underground, and there was a sound like thunder, and they were in water. In their time, ordinary people were being destroyed by a race of more advanced people with extraordinary abilities called Apex. FBI agent Emma Wren of the Department of Homeland Security removes the sheriff from the investigation because it is a matter of national security. Meanwhile, Leah stares out into the ocean, not believing her mother is dead, while the woman is pulled aboard a fishing boat that is headed for port. Jude, during this time, is preparing a room for his son, who is due to arrive for the weekend, and receives an FBI report. Emma warns him not to announce the time travelers to the world unless he wants a fuss. A rescued woman hears the news of those found ashore, while Emma's supervisor, Deputy Secretary Craig Lindauer, reads the testimony of the rescued and expresses disbelief. During this time, one of the rescued girls, Hannah, meets a young customs officer, Roy, while the others pass the time ashore, wondering what will happen to them in this world. One of the women, Rebecca, meets Leah and gives her a toy rabbit. At the same time, Jude is taken at gunpoint by a woman rescued from the water, who sneaks into his car and demands to be taken to the hangar with the bodies. But Emma tries to reassure the resettlers. They are already working out options with their housing and settling in. And they tell their story, hinting that they should not hide those who are hostile. One of the rescued, Thomas, demands a meeting with her superiors because they are not the first to arrive at this time. Jude takes the woman to the shed with the bodies and she examines them, while Emma calls Greg, who agrees to the meeting. At this time, the guards notice a break-in at the hangar and rush in. The woman is surrounded and the sheriff takes away her weapon. But then the unimaginable happens. The woman scatters the men and literally flies out a window high above the floor. Later, FBI agents review the footage of the incident and again question Jude, as the survivors are taken out of town. Meanwhile, the sheriff is informed of an incident at the port. A woman has beaten her assailant and taken his gun from him. At the same time, the people are settled into rooms at a coastal campsite. Leah is taken in by a married couple and Hannah meets Roy again. Then Thomas is horrified when he recognizes Lindauer as one of the earlier arrivals. Late at night, Jude finally makes it home and is on the phone with his son when he senses someone else's presence and disarms the woman from the future, Reese, who confesses that she is looking for her daughter. The year 2387. Reese and her partner scour the camp of the regulars and find a child. The partner prepares to kill the girl, ignoring Reese's plea not to, and then she shoots first. In our time, Jude brings her to the ocean shore, but no one is there. Meanwhile, the stranded people enjoy the peace and nature. The FBI continues interrogations, where they are told of Apex atrocities against ordinary people. The people are hunted and exterminated like animals. So when they learned of the opportunity to leave, no one hesitated. The people didn't know each other, but nevertheless, the survivors wanted to remember the dead. Jude brings Reese to his house, promising to search for her daughter on the condition that she disappear from his life. At this point, his partner reports that the feds are interrogating the burglar victim of the evening, and Jude goes to the hospital where he meets Emma, who shows him records of the survivors' interrogations. The people tell him about a deadly virus created by Apex, which is not dangerous to Apex, so they bravely enter the infected areas and kill everyone. The man is confused and asks his partner to follow Emma. The action shifts to the future. Reese's partner does not understand what does she want with the child, but the woman feels love and is not about to give it up despite the man's warning. And in the present, she finds Jude's half-dismantled car in the garage. Meanwhile, Lindauer forbids Reese to share data with the sheriff and orders her to continue DNA checks on the arrivals, and tricks her into saying that Thomas has reported nothing of importance, while his subordinate who has arrived with him from the future promises to find Apex and kill as brutally as possible. In the meantime, Jude returns to the station, where his partner recounts the results of the surveillance, from which the men realize that the survivors have been taken to a forest camp. But the sheriff, remembering the troubles at his last job that forced him to leave his family, refuses to do anything about it. At this time, Reese, having fixed Jude's car, drives it out to the store and is spotted in the parking lot by a patrolman. Reese recalls how Leah got sick, and the doctor she called was able to stop the virus with the Apex blood. The woman considers the toy she bought for her daughter, while the patrolman contacts the sheriff, and when he assures her that he's at the station, he rushes in pursuit. He drives Reese's car into a cul-de-sac, but no one turns up inside. Emma returns to the camp and learns that everyone but Leah has been tested because she has been asleep all day. Rebecca worries about the girl because she reminds her very much of her daughter. The woman is asked to bring the baby girl to the lab. Meanwhile, Reese comes to the station to see Jude. He is dumbfounded by her appearance and asks for her bag, where he finds a knife. He cannot take her to his daughter until he is sure she is safe for humans. Emma draws blood from Leah and notices strange marks on the girl's arm. Rebecca sees changes in her face. It's the virus. The girl is placed into isolation immediately. Meanwhile, Jude takes Reese into the woods, assuring her he knows where her daughter is. And she recalls how she was accused of breaking the rules, and her husband denounced her. The woman faces imprisonment and the child faces destruction, but Reese snatches a gun and shoots everyone but her husband. The memories are interrupted by a visit to an abandoned shipyard. The sheriff allegedly asked to bring the girl to neutral territory. To make the woman believe him, he gives her his gun and then tricks Reese into a secure cell and locks her there. He accuses her of withholding information about Apex's atrocities and illness and calls Emma, but he asks the agent to come alone. Reese recalls gathering Leah and how they fled to a place where there was a passageway to the past. Lindauer is informed of the location of the Apex and he sends his goons to the shipyard, while Emma goes there too and is amazed to see military helicopters. The sheriff also hears the sound of the rotors, and then a chemical grenade falls next to him and he passes out. The SWAT team opens the cell door and sees a woman lying on the floor. Reese, having lulled their guard, suddenly jumps up and, scattering the men, jumps into the water. But she herself is wounded. In the evening at the camp, the men commemorate their drowned compatriots, while Rebecca recalls how their young daughter was taken away by the Apex. Sometimes they spared those children who showed good knowledge, but what they did with them afterwards no one knows. Lindauer reports to his superior and is given the authority to decide the fate of the new refugees. He contacts an unknown woman who orders him to do whatever he can to make them disappear. Meanwhile, the sheriff wakes up in his car, drives home and answers Emma's call. He accuses her of betrayal, but the woman does not know how this happened. At that moment, Jude's ex-wife brings his son, and the man decides not to get involved with the FBI and devote himself fully to spending time with his son. At this time, a salesman notices bloody footprints on the floor and, walking across them, sees injured Reese by the medicine shelf. Later, the woman pulls the bullet out of her collarbone, while Lindauer's underlings search the neighborhood. They find the footprints in the store, but the woman is no longer there. The sheriff and Oliver, meanwhile, arrive at the station, but without learning anything new, Jude asks for the release of the guy Marshall detained the day before. Trying to survive at all costs, Thomas makes a non-disclosure agreement with Craig and convinces the other refugees to keep their mouths shut when one of the survivors approaches Hannah. He threatens the girl to tell the others about what she was doing at home, and she asks Roy to help her escape, but the guy refuses. In the meantime, Jude and Oliver arrive at the town festival, and Reese hides in the woods, but her pursuers discover her footprints and start a raid. Nevertheless, Roy leaves for the weekend, not noticing that Hannah has hidden in the trunk of his pickup truck. The girl gets out, but she can't unhook her blouse, and it stays in the car. In the meantime, Lindauer promises to send a specialist to Emma, and she accuses him of assaulting the sheriff. But the chief abruptly cuts her off, and then meets with the doctor, virologist Sophie Forbin. He immediately sends the doctor to the camp so she can study the strange disease. Reese continues to hide in the woods and destroys one of the stalker groups, while Emma meets Sophie and leads her to Leah. The doctor confesses this is the first time she's seen such a pathogen, and she's not here to save the girl, but to keep the others from the infection. Jude and Oliver in the meantime are having fun at the fair, and the boy wins a toy shark. Hannah also wanders among the people and suddenly sees Marshall. She remembers her locket lost in the ocean, which contained his picture, and calls out to the man. He is puzzled by the strange girl, but treats her to lunch. And then the music begins to play, and the girl rushes towards the stage. The abrupt change in Thomas's behavior makes Emma wonder about the previous wave of migration hidden from the authorities. And the agent goes to Jude, who in the meantime brings his son to the station where there's an open house for children. She tells him about her discovery, but he refuses to engage in the forbidden business. Sophie goes to see Leah, and the girl explains that her mother is her cure. Meanwhile, her mother destroys another group of stalkers, while Sophie tries to get the truth from Rebecca. But she assures her that there is no escape from the virus. And Rebecca's husband sees the unloading of the groceries and begins to question Thomas. Didn't he say that they would be released soon? So why so many provisions? Roy finds the jacket in his car and realizes that Hannah is somewhere in town. At this time, the girl asks Marshall for help because it was him she was looking for. But at that moment, Roy appears and despite Marshall's attempts to intervene, with Jude's support, takes the girl away. During this time, Reese finds the leader of the chase and he realizes that his groups have been destroyed. But the man has a weapon against the Apex, a generator of high-frequency sonic discharges that people can't perceive. While the woman is cowering in agony, he tells her how he will kill her and someone she cares about. Remembering her daughter, Reese gathers her strength and kills the military man. Meanwhile, Jude has to explain to his son the reason for his departure from home. He arrested a powerful criminal, causing his family to be threatened. But he won't let that situation happen again, and all will be well. In the meantime, Emma tries to search the government records for any information about the fugitives, but there is nothing anywhere. This makes her question the legality of what is happening. Roy, however, brings Hannah back, and she admits that she is in danger, but does not explain the reason for it. She returns to her cabin, where a blackmailer is waiting for her. She has cooperated with the Apex, and it is certain death. As long as she is here, she belongs to him. And Rebecca decides to tell Sophie the truth. Only the Apex are immune to the virus. As evening falls, Jude and Oliver are admiring the fireworks when the sound of a bang is heard. The sheriff leaves the kid and goes to the scene and finds the body of a military man with a note in his mouth asking Jude to suffer. The man runs back but finds only his son's abandoned toy. Later, Reese calls him on the phone and tells him that she will only return her son in exchange for her daughter. The man navigates her whereabouts but finds only an empty car. Meanwhile, life on the camp goes on as usual. The blackmailer finds Rebecca's husband Caleb in the church and wonders why he's hiding that he served in the Alpha Zulu Corps. After all, one should be proud to have killed Apex and their accomplices, but the man disagrees. Meanwhile, Marshall can't forget the strange girl and tries to find out where she's being held. And his buddy recalls the summer camp in the woods, while the sheriff tries to contact Emma, but she is unavailable. Being in a desperate situation, Jude knocks down the barrier at the entrance, and only then does Emma come out to him. He talks about how Reese has taken his son, and that's why he needs Leah. The agent talks about the girl's condition. In the meantime, Reese brings Oliver to the lake, and after persuading two fishermen to give up their fishing rods, arranges a fishing trip for the boy. Back at the camp, one of the arrivals, Paul, asks one of the agents to find the man from the drawing, while Sophie tells the sheriff of the girl's imminent death in 48 hours. Jude asks to give the girl to her mother, but at this point Emma is summoned by the agent and is shown Paul's drawing. At this time, Marshall comes to the station and asks the deputy to help get Hannah out of the woods camp, but he chases the guy away. Jude asks the doctor to help get Leah out because her mother has the right to say goodbye to the girl, and she agrees to confirm Leah's illness in person. Reese asks Paul to tell her about the woman in the drawing, and he admits that it is his wife who was in the first group of arrivals. Paul asks for help. Emma returns to the lab, but no one is there. Jude answers the call and promises to bring Sophie back after meeting with Reese, and she adds that she hopes to get Apex to help treat the girl. Meanwhile, Oliver asks Reese about her daughter, and he suggests that the woman try fishing. Apex names the coordinates of the meeting place. In the meantime, Caleb learns of Hannah's problems and reveals details of her past work with the Apex. The girl had to go through with it to save her father, who was brutally tortured in front of her. And now she won't resist if he wants to kill her. But the man leaves without touching Hannah. Emma then uploads the drawing to the tracing system, but remembers the helicopters and Lindauer's strange behavior. She interrupts the session and turns to an outside resource for help. The doctor questions Jude about the Apex woman, hoping for a breakthrough in virology, but the sheriff doesn't think she'll cooperate. Meanwhile, Marshall keeps thinking of Hannah, and his friend offers to launch a drone with a phone hanging from it towards the camp. But the drone is attacked by a bird and falls over the fence, where it is picked up by someone rescued. Caleb comes to the blackmailer and very lucidly orders him to leave the girl alone. At the same time, Jude and Sophie meet with Reese, and the man tells her about Leah's illness. The doctor shows a photo of the girl and asks to take her instead of Oliver. Apex agrees and explains that the boy is already home. The sheriff rushes there and is relieved to be able to hug his son again, while Marshall receives a call on his phone and learns that Caleb has found him. Jude informs Emma that Sophie and Reese have taken to making a cure, but she asks not to talk about it on the phone and promises to come to the station. Oliver tells him about the fishing and suggests that his father finds someone better than Reese. In the meantime, Emma arrives at the address of the woman in the drawing and shows her Paul's picture. She acknowledges it's her husband. The woman explains that Paul is a follower of a cult that pretends to be aliens from the future, which is what caused them to split up. The woman promises to show Emma her husband's pamphlets and letters, and she leaves to get them, while Emma looks at the pictures on the walls of the house. Suddenly, she sees her boss on the photo, but at that moment there's a gunshot and Emma falls. And that's the end of episode 4. We are already preparing a recap of the following series, so stay tuned.